We got it. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in our amazing and wonderful world. My name's Sophia from Sacred You, calling in from Australia. And today I have the absolute honor of chatting with the beautiful Elizabeth Kipp, who's calling in from somewhere in America.
Lawrence, Kansas.
Kansas, that's right. Sorry, Elizabeth. To chat about your masterclass that's part of the HarmonyFest. And I'm really, really excited because the HarmonyFest is now only 6 days away before we start. And Elizabeth, your masterclass is only 8 days away, which is wonderful, I do believe. Yes, 8 days. So, and it's understanding trauma, awareness of the self, the collective, and your ancestry. I love that. I really love this topic, and I'm really honored to be able to chat with you because we don't realize how much trauma we're carrying from our ancestors who've experienced it and stuff, and how we can clear it. So I love that. So welcome, Elizabeth. Welcome to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm so glad to be here, and it's my pleasure to teach the topic.
Yes.
It can be confusing. It can be overwhelming, and my job is to help everyone maybe see from a few different perspectives and find ease in all of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I'm sure you will. And I'm sure you're a wonderful person. Well, I know you're a wonderful person to be able to help people through to understand and connect, to really go deep in understanding how the trauma that our ancestors have experienced is affecting us now and how we can let it go. So can I ask you, Elizabeth, first of all, what inspired you to create this masterclass?
Oh, love it. I'm actually teaching a course, a 12-part course called Healing Here Now, Mindfulness and Trauma Recovery.
Uh-huh.
And it's a 12-part course through, I teach one class each month for 2023. And the fourth class in the series was around the individual, the self, and our ancestry, and in a context of trauma recovery. And it took me, I've had a lot of training in trauma, and then I've had a bunch of focused training on historical trauma and the collective as well. So trauma in the collective. And I just felt like, wow, what could I bring to Sacred You that would be helpful, that might be a little bit different from what others are teaching? And I thought, and this is where I landed. I was like, okay, we'll bring in some ancestral stuff and we'll talk about the collective. Also, I feel like in order for us as a planet and as a society, whatever society we're in, if we have an understanding of the collective burden that we're carrying, it'll help us to move forward in a more clean, honest way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely want to go into that because it's an interesting topic, I guess you'd like to say, like how can trauma from our ancestors, the trauma that our ancestors have experienced affect us? And how long back are we looking at?
Oh, well, we look back. So we can get cosmic here, but we will stay in science as well.
Yes,
I kind of like to do both. So the quantum physicists tell us that in the present moment, we can access past, present, and future all at once.
Yes.
So that's foundational principle for where we're going in this workshop.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
It's why ancestral clearing works in the first place. The trauma work works in the first place is because we're actually in the present moment. We're staying present with what is in the present moment, and it affects the whole. It's not just everybody in the present moment, but it's the past, present, and future are all in the present moment with us, which is why I say it can be confusing and overwhelming, but I keep it simple, right? So how does it get passed down? Well, think about it. information from our ancestors gets passed down every time through the DNA, every time we reproduce. There's information in the system. The question is, what kind of information is it? And unresolved trauma. So we're not talking about all trauma. We're talking about unresolved trauma. Unresolved trauma comes in through the lineage as well in an epigenetic way. And I'm not going to get too much into the science today, but there are switches that change depending on what is happening in the environment. There's very interesting research on this. Rachel Yehuda has done beautiful work on Holocaust survivors and their descendants versus people that weren't in that experience, and have seen that they have different cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone, an indicator of stress. So that's just a real sciencey way, like an actual measured way of measuring how trauma passes from one generation to another. There's all kinds of other stuff what I'll get to into the masterclass, but because I want to make sure everybody's grounded in the work. But it comes in as information. And so it's important because it helps us keep safe in the world so we can reproduce and have the next generation. Yeah. So it's not just that it happens, it's actually it happens and it helps guide us, guide the next generation as well. Yeah.
So how can ancestral trauma, I guess, manifest? How do we know that we may be experiencing ancestral trauma?
One of the markers, just a kind of a blatant example, is worry energy. I didn't really understand that my tendency to worry was something that I was mimicking in the adults around me and my grandmother, and they learned from their mothers and grandmothers. And it's this, and of course, there's going to be worry energy in the field because we want to, again, we want to survive. Yes. So the question is, how are we approaching life? Are we using worry energy? Because that's a lot of, it takes a lot of energy to worry.
It
right?
does. It does.
It takes a different kind of energy to solve the problem and move forward. But the worry energy, I don't know how productive that is, but we just really come in with that. It's just, that's just kind of, but I remember my son asking me when he moved to Los Angeles, he said, it was far away from Kansas, right? He said, he knew I was worried. And he asked me, he said, Mom, can you imagine me thriving instead of worrying about something happening? And I'm like, what a concept. That's brilliant. And so, but it took me a while to unravel, to rewire my habit of worrying and just imagine him, thriving. And it's doable. I just had to shift. Just had to shift my way of being. That's an example. Another one is, and another example is difficulty accessing joy.
Okay.
Yeah, we have certain populations that when I have clients and depending on what their heritage is or kind of what they're bringing into the session, I might ask them, do you have difficulty accessing joy? And they'll stop and their eyes will get wide and they will start crying because they've been acknowledged. No one's ever pointed that out to them before. But if you come from a lineage that's had extermination and all kinds of that kind of stuff, you're going to have difficulty accessing joy. Right?
I hear that. And it makes so much sense. Yeah. So much sense. But what do we do about it? Besides coming to your masterclass, which I thoroughly recommend it, people, everyone who's watching, and we do have quite a few people watching, so thank you for joining us today. Do click on the links that our amazing VAs have been putting in the comments. Thank you to Maymuna and to James. Click on the links and come and join Elizabeth for her masterclass. But what do we do? What do we do when we want to, we know having difficulty accessing joy, right? How do we clear it?
So that would take maybe a little bit longer than I can handle in a short Facebook Live, but that worked for me because I was suffered from chronic pain for decades, and I had joy. For me was like joy. That's a scary place to be, right? So I had my own issues with that. One of the things I did was I did trauma therapy. Another thing I do is I have a yoga practice which helps clear some of the unnecessary kind of conditioning. And I also do ancestral clearing. I'm not only a practitioner of it, I'm in it as I work the process for myself, which helps us. It's a beautiful energy kind of process that helps us again release that which no longer serves us.
Yes.
Getting in community is around like-minded people that are working on that kind of a problem is also helpful. It's really a spiritual practice. The yogis say our natural state is joy. And so our work in that practice, and really our work in life, is to remove all the blocks to joy.
Yes. Good. Well, I'll definitely be coming to your masterclass. Absolutely, and thoroughly recommend everyone else. And tell us more, Elizabeth, about your actual masterclass itself. What can people experience, or what will they experience or expect?
So I will be bringing starting with a somatic practice to help you ground and regulate yourself.
Good. Yeah.
Then I'll be bringing in the theme of we're all connected, and show the individual, the relational, and the collective self, and how those things are, how we kind of deal with those things, how we view those things. Also, what is historical trauma and what are its ancestral influences? We'll have a talk about some of personal behaviors, beliefs, some of the cultural, societal, and systemic influences that might have influenced your lived experience. The effect of trauma on the self and the collective.
Yes.
I'll bring in a thing called adverse child experiences and the collective. Those things together work together. That's kind of a list of a burden that people carry from childhood. Also, as I said before, healing from trauma is removing our conditioning. Life can only be the way we are. So we'll be talking about returning to the self, the higher self, as our experience. We'll talk about healing spaces for the collective and the individual. I'll take everyone through a group ancestral clearing experience, and also give you some practical steps to returning to your true self. So that's it's a pretty good package.
It's a very good package, and for the price, which is only $25 US or 39 Australian dollars, that is a bargain. That is so much value, because to see you, to get some on a one-on-one thing, to get some ancestral clearing done, I'm sure would be so much more than that. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Now, like I said, it's coming up in 8 days' time. 8 days' time, and a little bit after eight days. So it's Thursday, October the 12th at 4 p.m. US Central Time.
Yes.
And Friday the 13th, wonderful, at 9 a.m. Here in Sydney. There's Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is great. Just making sure we don't have any questions and comments. Okay, so Elizabeth, whilst we wrap up and before we say goodbye, just like to know, like for yourself personally, how has this helped you in your life? Can you share any experiences that you've had?
Sure. Yes. I remember at the age of 4 years old, sitting in the living room with my parents and feeling this heaviness in the room and in the family, and and not knowing, I just could feel it. It was really uncomfortable, and we didn't talk about unpleasant things in my family. That was like, if you can't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, kind of thing. So I felt it, and I didn't really know what it was, but I did know that my parents had been in World War II, had been affected. My father had been in the Pacific. My mother was lost her mother in the Atlantic, and so there was a lot of. I knew there was that, even at the age of 4. That was something that I knew about the family. But this seemed so intense, and as children do, we'll take things on to help our parents, to try and help our parents, right? That's kind of what children do. So I took on that burden. I probably came in with some of it too, right? But I didn't understand what to do with it. Nobody talked about it. I didn't know how to name it until I got into this ancestral clearing work, and I was finally able to, that's what that thing is. So it was interesting because it was the weight of all they saw in World War II, but my mother lost her mother in, as I said, in the Second World War. And I felt her level of grief, having, lived with her as long as I did, that her level of grief was actually ancestral, because it felt to me like the burden that she was carrying wasn't just for her mother, but for everyone that was lost in the Second World War, like everyone, and all the other wars. I mean, her level of depression was epic. And it made sense. As soon as that kind of realization came in, I was like, oh, I got it. I see what that was, right? And I was really grateful to be able to clear that cloud that shrouded me for so long.
Mm-hmm. And you've been able to do that through the ancestral clearing processes and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. I said, I'm really looking forward to it, excited. And I'd just like to honor you, totally and absolutely honor you for bringing this to Sacred You, to the HarmonyFest, into the world, because I can just imagine how the world would be if we were able to clear all the trauma that we have from the past, from our ancestors and things that we do carry with us without even realizing it. Without even realizing it. And I love it how you explain that, for a lot of people that they have trouble experiencing or touching into joy. And it's because of the ancestral stuff that's holding them back. So thank you. Thank you ever so much. I will certainly be there. Absolutely. And for everyone else, I do really, really recommend clicking on the links below, coming to join Elizabeth's masterclass on clearing ancestral healing, understanding the whole process, because I really believe that before we can clear stuff, we need to understand it, and just letting it go and take advantage of the fact that it's part of HarmonyFest, because I'm pretty sure it would cost a lot more if it wasn't. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's been a joy talking about joy. It's been a joy and an honor to be able to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sophia. It's always great to sit with you. Thank you.
I know.